Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, January the 27th. As we like to do on Mondays, we'll be chatting with our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. And let's get to Bill right away because, Bill, first of all, how is everything in New York?
Well, it seems pretty mild right now. I mean, politically, the temperature went up in our community to about 39 degrees today, which is, a heat wave. And they'll
Yeah.
probably say global. You see, global warming. That's what it is. Global warming. Um, Politically, there's strange things going on. The mayor seems to be perhaps in even more political trouble. And now apparently he has a medical problem of some kind. And he's been talking to the governor. He was talking to the president, I believe. It's become a very strange mystery as what exactly is wrong with him.
I saw that story about his health, I mean, I guess potential health issues, and there was very little detail in the story. And I'm
Yeah,
hoping, I mean, look, for his sake, I hope it's not something, seriously bad or anything like that. But it is kind of weird that it would come out this way. So I hope it's, I'm putting politics aside, and I hope it's the best for him.
yeah. Well, I don't actually know what happens
Hmm.
if a mayor leaves. There is a deputy mayor, but there is also a city council, and I actually don't know the rules in New York. There's a mayoral election next year, and a very critical mayoral election because he will probably be challenged in his own party. And if the Republicans were smart in New York, which is a very big question, if they have a really great candidate, given the situation, that candidate could be another Giuliani.
That's exactly right. It's a great opportunity. Now, I don't know who that Republican could be, or it could very well be the fellow. I hope it is. I don't know if he lives in New York City, but the fellow who ran for governor the last time, who's now the EPA
Yeah,
cabinet nominee. Can't think of his name right now, but
Zeldin.
it would be great. But I don't know if he qualifies as mayor, or I mean, as not as mayor, but if he qualifies geographically in Mexico. I mean, in New York City. I don't know.
They can establish residency in New York City. Just call your local precinct leader, and they make everything possible.
I think a couple of people did that before, Robert Kennedy and Hillary Clinton, as I
They did,
recall.
yes, both of them. Yeah, both of
Yeah,
them.
they,
Now,
they
on the Republican side, there are, people say, well, there are a lot of unknowns, but with modern communications, they get to be known very
sure.
quickly. Uh, but some people who've been mentioned are Ivanka Trump. She's
Mm.
been mentioned. Don't so immediately recall other people, but there are prominent people in New York who could be made ready for an election, depending on the condition of the city. That's the whole thing.
One fellow who I think would be really good, but I'm not sure if he's interested is Eric Trump. I'm pretty impressed with him.
Yes.
Whenever he's, I guess he's not Ivanka's husband.
No.
Um, Now he's pretty good too, but I don't
He
know if,
is. Yeah.
he's very
The
smart.
the
But
the, the
Eric, it
yeah, go
strikes
ahead.
me more favorably. I mean, Donald Jr. Maybe it's a bit more abrasive than Eric.
Yeah.
Eric might just be a better politician. I don't know.
Might might be the problem, of course, is that New York is so remarkably democratic. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know if anything that has happened in New York has made any impression on the local New Yorkers. People are running around with guns. I mean, the mayor is pleading for help from Washington. The governor doesn't seem to know there's a New York City. And I mean, if the Democrats put up, a criminal who's already in jail, they'd probably vote for him. It's
Right.
very tough. I don't know how Giuliani made it as to mayor, but he did, and did a very good job. Very different person then. But there is a shot. There's a chance. There's also a shot for the governor's chair. When the Republican Party gets going, which is very rare, they can win elections.
That's right. Well, it would be nice to have a change of scenery
Oh yes,
or a change of in New York because they certainly need it. Hopefully, I get the feeling, Bill. I don't know if people in New York have the same reaction, but I get the feeling that Trump wants to make New York better. He
Yes.
he has to, in the sense, feel that way. It's again, this is just my personal reaction, but I mean, this is a man who was born and grew up there. He cannot be happy with what's happening.
No. And New York. Look, let's face it. He has a residence right now in Florida, and he's legally a resident of Florida. I suspect that was for tax reasons or some other political reason. But becoming eligible is not that difficult. And
Right.
uh, but I think yes, I think he'd love to see a member of his family. But on the other hand, there's a risk if he loses, or that if that member loses, there's a kind of loss of prestige. So it may simply be a Trump surrogate.
Well,
But it,
we hope the best because they sure
yeah,
could use a different
oh,
face and a different voice and just a different approach,
that's right.
to say the least. Well, speaking of President Trump, I think you remember last time we spoke, Bill, that he had just been inaugurated, and we were still talking about the marching bands, and
Yes.
here we are a week later, and it's almost like it's been a year later.
Oh, yes.
It's an unbelievable week, and I want to begin with something we were talking about right before we went on about just going from President Biden to President Trump. What a you wrote about this. What a tremendous change that is, almost to the point. Does anybody even remember we had a president in Biden anymore? Incredible,
He has
incredible.
disappeared from the face of the earth, and so has his dynamic vice president, ahem, uh, Kamala, or is it Pamela, or whatever it is, Harris. I think she's in California, and I believe that she had made some moves over the weekend to indicate that she's still in politics, that she may run for governor of California, which is what Nixon did after he lost the
Mm-hmm.
presidency in 1960. The difference is that Kamala is no Nixon. I mean, Nixon was seen as presidential caliber, even though he lost the election. I don't know what caliber she is. I don't know what she can bring to any ticket, and I would imagine she's not particularly welcome by the Democratic Party in California.
Well, when you see the state of California and you see what they've just gone through and just utter incompetence
Oh yeah.
of that state, of the Democrats out there. One of the things that happened during the week, and there's so much to talk about, but one of the things that happened was that President Trump went out to LA and had that remarkable exchange, with the
Yes.
mayor and these other people there. And it's like, I would think anybody watching that, and anybody in LA or California watching that, had to look at that television screen and say, "This is a mismatch."
Yes, of course.
I mean, this is not just because he's president and she's mayor, but just at an intellectual level.
Yes.
It's. I mean, she is such a Karen Bass. I mean, she's not much of anything.
She's a professional politician with a very, very strong affection for Fidel Castro,
Yes.
which, even in Los Angeles may not get you too much. But look, that's another very interesting political situation. But it also should be pointed out that Trump is taking a lot of risks. He's very active, but people who are active are taking a risk. He's
Mm-hmm.
getting into areas that presidents very rarely get into. There could be a reversal in the economy and the stock market, which is bumping along today. And if a mistake is made, it could be exaggerated in the response because he's Donald Trump. So he knows how to take a risk. But if you take a risk, you got to know how to recover from it. If something goes
Yeah.
wrong, I think these are all planned. Everything he's done so far has been very well executed, and obviously a lot of planning. He can probably thank his chief of staff for that. The people around him who are very good, not like the first time he became president, where
Right.
he really didn't know much about what to do.
You're right, and he has much better people this time too,
He,
I think, than the first time. But you were talking about planning things. You almost get the feeling this deportation plan that they were working on it during the transition
Yes.
because um, Tom Holland, is it, or the the director of not ICE, but the fellow who's overseeing. I see him on television all the time.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now. I think it's Thomas. I think, but
Uh,
anyway,
I know who you're referring to. The
yeah,
borders are.
the borders are. He
Yes.
is. I mean, it's like they were ready a minute after.
Yes, they
I
were
mean,
absolutely prepared. They were doing a lot of work that was never reported to us
right?
by the press. The press may not have been aware of it, and which tells you something about the press. But they were absolutely ready in every area. I mean, Secretary of State um, uh, Marco Rubio was absolutely ready. He's taking his first trip overseas.
Hmm.
They know exactly what policies they're going to pursue and exactly what message they want to send. He's got a great team. He really does.
Well, they had to know. I mean, they hit the ground running, and the president and the first lady were dancing, and these ICE people were already knocking on doors. I,
Yes,
I mean, it was remarkable. And I think, considering how large of an operation it's been, Bill, I mean, they've, I guess, arrested almost 1,000 people.
yes,
Considering how big it is, it's been awfully efficient. I mean, the media keeps looking for somebody to complain or somebody to say that something bad happened, but they're having a hard time finding anybody. At least I haven't seen him. There was some movie star or some actress or singer. I don't even know. Selena Gomez. I don't even know who she is. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know who she is. I'm not. I guess I'm not up to speed on her music or whatever.
yeah,
So I'm not sure if she's the girl who was going to play, uh, one of these Disney movies. I don't know who she is. I know
yes,
she's popular, but she was making a video crying about these arrests. And Bill,
yes.
it made me upset because where was the crying when you have women being raped on the
Yeah,
border, when you have
right.
children disappearing?
And
Where's the
murdered,
crying?
and yes,
And murder?
absolutely.
I mean, where are these people? I mean, there's selective indignation.
I think what you got, not only is selective indignation, but I think they are, as usual, misreading the
Right.
Hispanic community. You know,
Big time.
there is a left wing faction, of course, but that left wing faction does not seem to be very effective anymore. Uh, I
No.
think most Americans, in fact, I saw some polling statistics that 90% of Americans agree that that any criminals should be immediately removed from the United States, and that included the Hispanic community.
Right.
They're following a playbook from 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's the old story about the generals are fighting with the war, whatever,
Fighting the last war.
fighting the last war, and they think if they call Trump a, I guess, Hitler or whatever, that's going to help them,
Yeah.
and it's not helping them at all. But in this particular case, but I just feel like they were so prepared. Holman, I think, is the guy's name.
Omen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he seemed to be so prepared for this. I mean, everything was just like right there, ready to go. Touch a button, we're ready to go. And so far, I mean, if you look at the videos I've seen, the ICE agents are very professional, and nobody's they're not dropping soldiers from helicopters into
Yeah.
apartment complexes. They're not dragging women out of the apartments with babies. Um, yeah, there's been a hysterical response, but I don't think the hysterical response is matching the community.
I think you're right.
I get that feeling, but I thought that was remarkable. And of course, speaking of deportations, they sent a plane to Colombia, and Colombia made a big deal out of it. But in the end, Colombia decided that they were going to pick up the people. They were going to fly a plane up here and pick them up. But there again, I was impressed with how quickly Secretary Rubio reacted, or how quickly the Trump administration reacted. I mean, the whole idea that you got Trump playing golf, and he's
Yeah.
he's sitting there announcing a tariff or something. I mean, you know,
Well, AOC entered the
incredible.
picture and expressed great shock at what's happening in her community. Now, apparently, she's never met anybody in her community because the soundings here are that the Hispanic community or communities, really in plural, in New York are perfectly fine with having the criminals taken out.
Well, and I didn't she also say something about how the price of coffee was going to go up?
Yes, yes. Nobody told her that we get coffee from a lot of places, and she look she's totally out of it, but she's trying to sound more moderate because she wants to run for Schumer's Senate seat, and she may very well make it. Who knows? Strange things happen in politics, but the Democratic Party as a national institution is so weak right now. You would think they would spend some time trying to straighten things out, but instead they're going to have an election for party chairman, and I just have an instinct that it's not going to go very well.
Well, there's a great article. I recommend it to anybody. I'll send you a copy, Bill. Too bad I didn't get a chance to send it to you before our conversation today. But Rui Teixeira, you may remember his name. He's the one who many years ago wrote that book about the emerging Democrat majority.
Yes. Hmm.
And the emerging Democrat majority was going to happen because of Hispanics.
Yes.
And now he just, I guess, did an upgrade, or not an upgrade to the book, but he wrote an article today basically saying three things to the Democrats if they want to get back in the game.
Yes.
The first thing he said is stop, take border enforcement more seriously because
That's
people
right.
want that.
Yes.
The second thing was this obsession with trans people
Yes.
that just seems to it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
They're the group of the month. The
Right.
next month there'll be another group.
And then the third thing was about fossil fuels.
Yes.
That somehow they forget that at least here in Texas and the southern part over by Corpus Christi, there's a lot of people with Hispanic surnames working at those factories
Yes, that's
and
true.
at those refineries and driving those trucks. So I just thought it was a fascinating article. I'll send it to you because he's a pretty level-headed guy. He's a
Yeah.
liberal. He's a liberal, and he's looking at his party or his side and saying, "You guys have to change. This is not working. What you're doing."
That's interesting, and I do wonder. And I was it Trump who brought up this possibility that the Democratic Party is basically out of business and a new party will emerge. It's something that Mike Bloomberg can do, if he in the mood to write checks to form a new political party, a center left political party, basically excluding the crazies, and that was actually done in 1948, when Eleanor Roosevelt and President Truman combined to tell the political left in the party so far and no further. And they did form a new party called the Progressive Party, and they ran a candidate against Truman, and it was Henry Wallace, and nothing good happened to them.
Yeah.
There's parties have a life expectancy. Parties have gone out of business before, and maybe this is the time.
Well, and the only way parties can get back into things or get back into relevance is if they move to the middle.
Yes,
And I think that's what the Republicans did after Goldwater. I think it's fair to say that. I mean, after Goldwater came Nixon, who
yes,
was obviously more moderate than Goldwater,
and was elected.
and was elected back to back times. I don't know. I just think the party they've got to look at themselves in the mirror because they seem to be focusing even today. They seem to be focusing on issues like the price of coffee is going to go up. Well,
Yeah,
okay, so the price of first of all, it's not going to happen because there aren't going to be any tariffs. I mean, that issue was resolved. But okay, so it goes up. It goes up. So Goya, our friends there in New York who supply all those bodegas, will bring us coffee from Brazil, or
yes,
will bring coffee from I don't know, Dominican Republic or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of places. I mean, Central America, a lot of countries that would love to sell us coffee.
yes. I'm sure AOC believes that coffee is being grown in her district.
Well, probably a lot of crazy things being run in her district that
Yeah.
she probably should pay attention to. But no, but I think she's your typical out of, as they say, out of mainstream Democrat that's killing
Yes.
the party. But something else too, Bill, that caught my attention this week, and I'd like to get your thoughts. You've written about it as well over at Urgent Agenda, is how active this president was. I
Oh,
mean,
unbelievable.
I can't. I mean, this is on, what was it, on Friday? He went to North Carolina in the
Yes.
morning. He went to California in the afternoon, and then he went to Vegas and had a rally the next day. I mean, you're talking about a man going three time zones
Yes. Yes.
in 48 hours or
And I
even less.
believe his wife was with him in all three, and she looked wonderful.
She did.
Yeah.
She humanizes him. That's
Yes,
what she
that's
does.
exactly right.
She does. I mean, she standing next to him adds a lot of value. But I look at this man. He's 78 years old, I believe. He's obviously in good health, very strong, and we hope it stays. But man, he is really pushing himself. I have to confess, and I know this may sound terrible, but I was hoping he would take off the weekend
Yes.
and just kind of relax.
I wish he would too. But
Go to
he,
Camp David.
I think he enjoys it so much. I mean, I think he loves the limelight and loves the ratings he's getting
Oh
the
yeah.
poll number he's getting, and I think that he loves a good challenge when he knows he can meet it and defeat the guy. Taking on the taking on the president of Colombia was a work of political genius. He knew he was going to win, and now he's saying we are saying to the world, this is who we are, and we're in charge. And apparently, the Secretary, uh, uh, not Pompeo, but
Rubio.
Rubio, is giving that same message to make his first trip that America is back and it's back and will act like a great power.
And it's coming at a very good time, Bill, because there are some, at least in Latin America, you have a very dangerous situation in Venezuela. This guy in Colombia, he's not a danger to the region because he doesn't have any military or anything like that. But he's just another left wing voice.
Yes,
He's a former guerrilla fighter. I mean, that's who he is.
yes,
He was up in the mountains fighting with the guerrilla, and it would be really nice for the region if Maduro in Venezuela would go and then take Cuba with him when he goes, and the situation in Venezuela, I mean in Colombia,
Colombia.
was different. I mean, if they had more moderate presidents, I think it would be good for them, and it could create some really interesting opportunities of trading with the United States and doing business. I think the reason, and you remember going back to the summer, I was hoping that he would pick Rubio as VP.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember that.
yeah, and that's because I thought he'd make a great candidate and a great VP. But now I'm beginning to think that maybe this was the best choice to have him as Secretary of State. This is a fellow from Florida, Cuban American, who speaks Spanish, who can, I think, do some wonderful things with Latin America. And
Yes, you
of
can.
course, Panama is a big topic as well. So it
And
just seems to me that Trump selected some good people. I'll put it that way.
yes, and also the person who is working out very well is the Vice President of the United States. He's extremely articulate, and everybody loves his wife.
Yes, and I don't think he's going to get a lot more invitations to face the nation.
No, no, no. He fights back, and he's extremely smart. And nobody has a bad word to say about him right now. And as I said, everybody loves his wife.
And I bet there's a billion people in India who just love his wife too.
Oh, absolutely, of course. And there's a large Indian American community here, and she is not only so beautiful, she's so accomplished, and I think she's going to become a public figure. Now, the question that is being asked in New York is, with all these things happening and the way they're happening, how can Vogue, the women's magazine,
Yeah.
keep Melania and the
Usha,
vice
I think
president
is her name, right? Usha.
Usha off its cover. I mean, are they crazy? Are they completely nuts?
Well, I think it's a little ideology playing out,
Oh
Bill.
yes,
That's all I can say because I think you're right. I mean, Melania, the way Melania looked in inauguration, and even when she took this trip, she looks so fashionable.
oh she
And
is.
I was talking to a few ladies, friends and so on, and here's the conclusion that I got from the ladies, just friends and family friends and that kind of thing. People, of course, and they were saying that Melania looks great because she was a model and they know how to prepare her, so maybe she's got a little advantage. But Usha, more people relate to Usha because
Yes,
she's a normal person.
yes she is.
She's not a model, although she's obviously very beautiful. She's not a model. And the scene where she's there with the three kids uh, really humanized her, I think, in such a
Hmm.
way. Not, of course, not that Melania doesn't love her son; she does too. But I just saying, I'm just getting back to what you were saying. Everybody loves his wife. I think it's because so many people relate, have somebody like Usha in their family. Young mother with three kids.
That's right, and she has a wonderful smile and just a great manner. So I think so far so good for the Trump administration. But we should always say that the American people give a new president about 3 months, and then they start turning on him. Although in this case, there may not be anything to turn on.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we'll see. Because um, we will know a lot more, I think, after they can put that reconciliation package through.
Yes. Hmm.
I mean, they just basically got started. I mean, it's hard to expect too much. Although he did get the Lincoln Rayleigh Act through
Yes.
Congress with 12 Democrat senators. That
Yeah.
if that doesn't tell you that these people are reading the polls, what else does, Bill?
Yes. And it was amazing how the Democratic Party, most of it, opposed that. And I mean, they are absolutely brain dead about what's going on in their own country. They really think that the political left and the left thinks, apparently I saw a report this morning that they think they are the mainstream and that these moderates are really way out of touch. If you watch CNN, which is a pain to do anyway, I mean they really believe that that they have nailed it down, and that then that there's some secret batch of votes out there that maybe they didn't go to the polls to vote because the weather wasn't nice or their car broke down or something like that. But there isn't. There really isn't. It's like Hitler always believing. Well, I shouldn't say Hitler.
No.
That's been enough. But some countries in World War II believed that there was a secret army somewhere, uh, and there wasn't any secret army.
Right. No, I think one of the reasons that we love chatting with you, Bill, is that you watch CNN, so we don't have to.
And I have to. It's one of the things I have to do because they are an important institution. They don't get that many viewers or readers or whatever they call themselves, specimens. And I mean, the polls are so low for CNN that it's just embarrassing. And I think they're going to get lower. I don't think there's any. Now they actually, I'm sure that secretly, I'm sure that they are delighted that Trump won because Trump is good for their business. They're the Trump network.
They are. That's all they talk about.
That's
But I
right.
will tell you, the smartest decision they've ever made that I can think of is Scott Jennings. This
Yes, he's
gentleman.
terrific.
He's from Kentucky, I think he is from, or one of those southern states, and the guy is just absolutely incredibly good. Not only do I agree with him, but his style and the way he debates with others. I mean, it's just I don't know who he reminds me of, but he reminds me of maybe Reagan, the way he
Yeah,
used
to
to
a certain
communicate.
degree, yes. He
Yeah,
hasn't got Reagan's sense of humor, but he has his personality. That the harshest thing Reagan ever said about anybody was "There you go again,"
there you go again,
and then
right?
he's a version of that.
Or maybe the second harshest thing he ever said is, "I paid for this microphone."
Yes,
I
yes.
remember that one from, I think it was New Hampshire, the primary.
Right,
Actually, it
yes,
was against Bush. I think he and Bush were arguing, weren't
yes,
they, in
yes.
that primary? No, but it is really been. And you mentioned the polling data. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I have said this before. Now I'll say it again. The issues that President Trump is presenting or doing are more popular than him.
Oh, yes.
If you understand what I mean,
Oh, absolutely, of
if
course.
I may put it this way, it's the exact opposite of Reagan.
Hmm.
Because Reagan, I remember one time, I think it was the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, saying, everybody disagrees with him, but everybody loves him.
Yeah,
In this case, is everybody,
agreed.
everybody agrees with him, but not necessarily love him.
That's right. That's right. And they kind of accept him for what he is.
Right.
They're not marrying him, but they're quite right about Reagan. That was a very commonly said thing is, I don't agree with him, but I really like him.
I really like him. Yeah, he had that amiable personality
Yes.
that just went over. I think I don't remember Eisenhower. Maybe you do, but didn't Eisenhower have that same talent, being
Well,
very amiable?
actually, Eisenhower was not a good speaker.
Hmm.
It was held against him. He was a wonderful writer. Many people don't realize that he was an excellent writer, not a great speaker. But what he had is, first of all, he had a wonderful smile, and people did that, which hid, by the way, a very ferocious temper.
Hmm.
And second, people admired him for his career. I mean, he was the architect of, or at least one of the architects of victory in Europe during World War II. He always conducted himself very well, as opposed to Douglas MacArthur, who was an egotist of unbelievable proportions. I mean, MacArthur would have liked to have been president in 1952, and uh, he made it very plain that he wanted the party to come to him, and basically sit at his feet and beg him to run. Well, he didn't get that. He didn't
Right.
get that because his ego was so strong. He ran around the country making speeches that were quite controversial, and he didn't realize they were controversial.
Right. Well, that's right, and he got fired by
Harry
President
Truman.
Truman. Yeah, and also something else about Eisenhower that I've always admired. And I've read a few things about him, but if you think of someone in the 20th century, I don't know anybody else in the 20th century who had back to back the two biggest jobs in the world, the
Yes,
European War and
yes,
then President of the United States. So
that's
this
right.
man from 1940, let's say, to 1960 was in the middle of of everything.
Yes,
Obviously, he was not as well known as the general, at least not like president. But it seemed like, I remember reading one time that when he became president in 52, that most of the constituents who voted for him had served under him.
yes. Yes, we had a neighbor who he said that's my boss. That's
That's
my
right.
boss. And
Yeah.
he was a man who knew how to stay out of trouble. He
Yes.
didn't like trouble. Uh, knew how to conduct himself. Very, very shrewd. It only came out later, many years later, that people learned how intelligent he was and how effective he was, and that was because a professor at Princeton started reading the records of his administration that were being released after the required number of years, and he said, this is his name was Greenstein, Professor Greenstein, and he said this is a very sharp guy, and it was he who basically resurrected Eisenhower's name, and he wrote a book called The Hidden Hand Presidency, suggesting that Eisenhower was a very effective person as president, but he did it all behind the scenes.
Wow. Well, I know that he had a first lady with an amazing name, Mamie, right? Mimi?
Mamie,
Mimi, yeah. I
very
mean,
old, an old-fashioned American name.
how can you beat that name? I mean,
Yes,
you got Ike and Mimi. I know, is it
I can Mamie.
Mamie? I mean, you cannot beat that from a
That's right.
campaign standpoint. Bill, before we go, I wanted to get your thoughts on the latest on the hostage situation. I guess a couple of more young women were released. Um, how do you see it going? Do you think that we will soon be, unfortunately, getting some dead bodies back?
I don't know. There is a lot of speculation in Israel. There are some other prisoners who apparently are going to be released over the weekend. I don't know what country they came from. People forget that a number of the hostages are not Israeli. They are from a number of different countries because there was that music festival, and there are some from the United States. And the Biden administration did not show much interest in them, to put it mildly.
Hmm.
But we don't know how well it's going because one flash, one untoward event like a terrorist attack could destroy it. We don't know how the Israelis Netanyahu will react as stages go on. This is being done by stages, and the further they go on, the stronger Hamas seems to get because now they're being treated almost as a state because they have those hostages. Now the question is, will they release all of them or keep a number for safekeeping? We don't know. We don't know what's in their minds. I think it is obvious that that President Trump is sending the signal to them: don't cross me.
Right.
Just don't cross me. It'll be very unpleasant, and maybe they're getting that message.
Well, after the incident with Colombia, I think the people are beginning to realize that President Trump is a serious man. And if he
Very
says
serious.
something, I mean, the deportations, the incident with Colombia. But let me just get back before we go to the deportations. Why would anybody be surprised that he's carrying this out? He spent the whole campaign talking about it.
Well, they're very surprised when any candidate does what he says he's going to do. But
Right.
that's one of his great strengths. They know that he means business. If he makes a threat, he will carry it out. And that can scare the hell out of people. It really can. I mean, they have images of their country being invaded or bombed or something else terrible happening to them. And that's what you want. You want in a president a number of qualities, greatness, I mean, and a strategic planner, but you also want that president to be feared. A
Hmm.
president of the United States must be feared. He must send chills down people's backs because of the power of the United States.
Yeah, and the nature of the adversaries. We're not
Oh
talking here
yes.
about nice adversaries. We're
No, no,
talking
no.
about
These
some
are
very
these
bad
are
people.
these are not the school boys
No.
counselors.
I mean, yeah, we're not, the adversaries, are not our European friends. The adversaries are the Chinese, the Russians, or not the people themselves, but the leadership of these countries. But I guess one more thing about the polling data, Bill, you're right. I mean, he seems to be doing quite well right now. We'll see. We'll see how it continues. I'm gonna make a prediction, Bill, that this coming week, before we chat next week, that there's going to be some big things this week as well. I mean, that this is not over.
No.
That this is like a parade, and every, like the Macy's parade, every time it gets bigger than the previous one.
Oh yes.
And I just think that he's got other things that he plans to do. I'm not exactly sure what, but things are coming. And he talked about eliminating FEMA. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I like the point that he made, that he wants to see governors more involved, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a good thing. And one thing I'm hoping he will do is I don't know whether he can do it right now, but maybe in the next 2 years, or the last 2 years, I wish he would focus on something that many of us have argued for a long time, and that is the idea of doing away with the income tax or the IRS and replacing it with a national sales tax or something like that. I think the country may be ready for something that big.
He may do that. I also think that he will be doing very well if he concentrates a lot on education. Education
Mhm.
is a very big issue in this country, and really does something that will improve the schools, and give a break to the parents.
I agree. Especially minority parents, who are the ones
Yes.
who are really dealing with some very bad schools. Well, Bill, have a great week. keep track of CNN for us,
Yeah.
and we'll chat the next time. And as always, it's a great honor and a lot of fun to have you.
Oh, I feel the same way about you, Silvio, and I look forward to our next talk. And let's see if Trump is ruling half the world next week.
Well, let's see if one of these days when we chat, we say, nothing happened last week. It was kind of a slow week. He took a vacation. Let's see if that ever happens.
Yeah,
All right, Bill. Thank you
terrific.
so much, as always.
Absolutely. Glad to be with you,
All right,
Silvio.
we'll talk to you later. Our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda, we chat with him once a week, and we call it the Week in Review. And with President Trump, it's more like the last 24 hours in review because there's something going on. So, as they say, fasten your seatbelts because I think the next week is going to be crazy. Not crazy, that sounds bad. Exciting. Let's put it that way. Have a good week, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.